Hi, and welcome to this webinar on drone cinematography and the lessons from Hollywood that drone operators can incorporate into their footage to create better footage, create better, tell better stories. And basically, what I want to talk about today is all the lessons that Hollywood aerial cinematographers, I mean, usually helicopters, sometimes using cable cams, sometimes using jibs, have evolved over the last 70 years. The first helicopter shot, I believe, is in 1946 in a Robin Hood movie. And so over those last 70 years, Hollywood has discovered through trial and error and huge expense the best way to uh, move the audience through a story, to do establishing shots, to use multi-access moves, to create parallax, to create depth, to create visual interest. And what I think a lot of drone operators can learn from Hollywood because a lot of drone operators started when they bought their first drone, they picked up their controller, they whipped around and try not to crash, sometimes successfully, sometimes less than successfully, and they basically taught themselves cinematography. There's some amazing drone pilots out there. Hopefully, some of them are on this stream. But what I want to talk about is not necessarily the logistics and the mechanics of flying drones, but the storytelling aspects that drone operators can learn from Hollywood. So that's what we're going to be doing. Thank you very much to DJI for sponsoring this webinar. No doubt there'll be some links in some kind of description somewhere. You can find out more about their drones. And they are definitely the global authority on drones. I've been flying drones for only 2 or 3 years now. I started with DJI FPV. Now I've been flying the new Mavic 3, which opens all sorts of new possibilities. Um, and I think that a lot of drone operators, to elaborate on the point from before, more or less take their cue and have developed their visual language from video games, especially video games where you fly, because even with the learning my FPV drone, you have the DJI app where you can actually practice and learn and fly a virtual drone through a virtual course. And the emphasis is very much on maneuverability, being able to get that drone to turn and go through that gate, and then control your flight path so that you hit all the things. And I think a lot of the skills out there, and I'm a filmmaker by profession. That's the only job I've ever had for the last 25 years. I've directed commercials, directed 2 feature films, shot a bunch of, as a cinematographer, shot a bunch of commercials, shot documentaries, had a web series that did 1 million views on YouTube 10 years ago. And what I've been really immersed in is story and the way you convey information to the audience so that it tells the audience what you want the audience to know. And I think this is going to be very helpful for drone operators because they're constantly, rather than thinking, is this what information am I communicating? A lot of drone operators' first thought is this cool? Does this look cool? And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the difference is you're seeing it from your perspective as an operator, your perspective from the idea of creating a spectacle, creating something impressive. But that is usually divorced from what is the function of the shot. What am I trying to tell? So we're going to go through a ton of scenes and shots from famous Hollywood movies, especially Lord of the Rings, Fury Road, Star Wars, numerous other shots and different films from award-winning directors and cinematographers. But very seldom will they be drone shots. More often than not, they are going to be helicopter shots. Now, flying a helicopter is and operating a helicopter based camera is a very different thing, mainly because there are 2 people doing it. meaning that someone's flying the helicopter, someone else is operating the camera. I've never heard of the camera operator also operating. It's very, very dangerous. If you don't know what the difficulty of a helicopter, it is an incredibly concentration dependent skill. And so helicopter pilots, it's very stressful. Very few of them fly for fun. It is sort of like patting your head while rubbing your stomach while hopping a circle on one leg, to keep the helicopter where you need it to be. And so the idea that, very seldom is that operator, also that helicopter pilot, also operating the camera. And when that happens on a film set, what happens is the helicopter pilot and the camera operator are communicating via headsets. The camera operator, the helicopter pilot, has to get into position, achieve speed, achieve the line, and the camera operator, usually with wheels, is controlling a gimbal or some kind of mount beneath the helicopter, and he's counter panning or whatever it is. So actually, a lot of the shots we're going to look at today were much harder to do than your average drone shot, especially with all the great technology in this current generation of drones, where you can lock onto a target by selecting it on the phone and making a little green circle, and then flying the drone anywhere you want, and the camera is going to stay stuck to that object. This allows you to do orbiting really easily. It allows you to do flyovers really easily. All these techniques that for a helicopter pilot and a camera operator would have taken dozens of attempts. So we actually have it really, really good as drone operators, even though a lot of the time we're solo. So we're shooting and operating the drone at the same time. Not to say that you can't add that technology and have someone fly the drone and someone operate the camera. Though it's now within the FPV era, it's much less common, because the speed of the drone and the time at which decisions need to be made is much, much quicker. So I'm going to get into, and look at that, I've got my chat up. So if people are able to ask questions as I talk and as I show these shots, and Danny is going to put it into, whether you're asking on the different platforms, it's going to appear in the webinar chat. So a couple of notes to keep in mind as we talk about these shots. There's a great phrase, whatever extends the truth detracts from the truth. And that means if something has happened and it's amazing, incredible, impressive, and you lie about it a little bit, if you say there were 1,000 policemen there, and there were only 100, right? 100 police is still really impressive, but by lying, you now detracted from what was already impressive. And I think this applies to drone photography, in that if sometimes less is more, or sometimes just showing something clearly for the audience is better than whipping around, going upside down. I'm seeing a ton of, especially FPV stuff, which just is there's so much information being thrown at the audience with very little context, with very little finesse by the drone operator and hence the director, that it can be really overwhelming. You should think of drawing people into your shots and your story a lot like fishing. You need a hook or some bait, and then you need to capture their attention and then slowly reel them in. You can't just say, bam, here's all the information, because the human eye then has to look around the frame and sort of comprehend what you've put in front of it. Whereas if you're able to slowly lead the audience's eye through the frame and through the scene, revealing more and more information as you go, as they're ready for it, you're actually going to create a much more immersive experience. You're going to create a much more compelling and impressive way of bringing the person in. So we're going to go into establishing shots. Now, for those who don't know, establishing shots, you almost always see them at the start of a movie. You have your credits, and then the camera will like start over water usually. I mean, this is the classic establishing shot from the 80s, and you would just get the sense of speed over water, and then it would slowly pan up, revealing your location, be it New York City, be it Chicago, be it a castle in the forest. I'm going to share my screen now. So here we have probably the most most famous establishing shot of all time. Am I going to be able to go full screen? Yes. And we start with a planet, and we've just had the forward crawl. We start with a planet, and here's a little ship, and then suddenly here's a big ship. How big is the ship? This ship gets bigger and bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger. Is that the end? No, it's still not the end. The ship is getting bigger and larger and larger. Oh my God, it's the size of a country. It's the size of a planet. And yes, of course, this is the opening to Star Wars: A New Hope. But this establishing shot, George Lucas didn't just open on small ship, big ship and said, oh, look, the big guys are attacking the small guys. This is a underdog story. What he did was, and this isn't in the natural sense a drone shot, right? We're not flying over, craning down. What he did was essentially have a locked off camera and let the objects move into the frame. Here's our small little spaceship. So we've established the space movie. We're over a strange planet. We have 2 strange moons. And then suddenly in comes the larger ship that's pursuing it. It asks and answers a question, right? Let's see my little zoom here. We see a small ship. Something's happening. Things are being shot at that small ship. Why? Who is shooting at it? And then we get our answer. Oh, it's a bigger ship. Oh, it's a bigger ship. Bigger. And we're going for, I'm speeding this up, almost 20 seconds of slow reveal of how big this ship is. So again, this isn't a drone shot, but this could be a drone shot if you're flying backwards and slowly revealing the first the object or subject of the shot and the establishing thing, and then you're establishing how overwhelmed and how outgunned this small little ship is by the bigger ship. At this point, we don't know, one is the rebellion, one is the empire, but what we do know is that this small ship is totally outclassed, way too big, huge compared to the large one. Should be playing. Is that working? I'm glad I checked the chat. Let me see, chat. Now it's playing. Great. Okay. So let's play that back again now that it's working. Star Wars, empty sky, small ship. Who is shooting at the small ship? We don't know. Bigger ship comes behind, slowly revealing. Is that the end of it? No, it's still not the end of it. It's larger, it's larger, it's larger, it's larger. So by choosing to not just reveal everything in a wide shot, but by having essentially a locked off camera and then having the subjects fly past the camera and slowly in a pretty tight lens, I guess, in a tight frame, having the objects come into camera slowly to then gradually reveal more and more and more of how their size and their comparison are, was a really smart choice. Here's another establishing shot, right? He could have just cut to a locked off shot of, this is Transformers, I think, because that's a space shuttle on a very weird looking rocket. Rather than just cut to an aerial shot of the launching pad, he actually does this thing where soldiers open the gate for the camera that then pushes in and cranes up to show what it is that we are. So we're not sure whether or not this is a God point of view establishing where we are, or we're in the car with the characters going to the space shuttle. And that's what makes it very, very interesting. Oh, it is Transformers, because look, there's a There's a Autobot flag up here on the thing. It's NASA. Is another great establishing shot from Lord of the Rings. We're going back to that. You know, and this includes a new sort of establishing principle, which is a character establishing shot. Rather than just fly up over this hill, or rather than reveal Gondor, the city, the White City. So here's the Transformers clip. Going through the gate, the subjects are opening the gate for the camera, which I think is great. Here's a subject-driven establishing shot. This is definitely aerial, where we follow Gandalf. We see this little spire up here on top of the hill, and then we follow Gandalf up and over, revealing the city. So we have subject, object. So Gandalf is riding to Gondor, but we're linking the two of them between our shot. Here's another example, Tron, right? We start on our bike. We see the city up here in the top right. And then we follow the bike. We pan with the bike and reveal more of the city. Switch that again. Oh, I lost my place. So Gandalf, Tron, start on the bike, zoom up. We could have started in this wide shot and just had the bike ride into bottom left, but he didn't. We started on the bike and then use the bike to slowly reveal more information. The principle being that if you just open on a wide shot of your thing, of your whole scene, you're not controlling what the audience is seeing. You're just giving everything to them at once, rather than think of it as like serving, appetizers, then antipasto, then your main meal, then dessert, then coffee afterwards. So you're within the shot, you're slowly giving the audience as much as it needs to eat at any given time. You're not just dumping 7 courses in front of them and the audience, the viewer, is overwhelmed. All right, I'm going to share screen. Okay. Here's another great example from Alexander. We have the two armies meeting on the battle of Gaugamela, if you want to call it that. This could be a great aerial shot. Obviously, it's CGI because there's 200,000 people there. That's a lot of extras. But what he does very cleverly is bring in this eagle. This eagle now comes from bottom of screen, and you're now watching its POV of the entire scene. You're watching it slowly reveal and seeing what it's seeing, and it makes for a much more powerful shot. Yes, it's going to be difficult if you're a drone pilot to say, oh, I'm just going to follow an eagle across the scene. But think about, this eagle is certainly something that has been green screened in there. But you see the principle of now you're watching this eagle, you're watching its perspective. It somehow also gives scale to the army. It doesn't look like a battle of ants, right? The eagle is here. The eagle is very high. We know how big an eagle or a bird is. And so now we have some perspective on the size of it. You don't always need to have, let me check it's working, sharing screen. Okay. You don't always need to have big, spectacular, battles of Gaugamela or spaceships. Here is an establishing shot from Scarface, Brian De Palma. You have the silhouette. It's shot so perfectly. The sun has just set. The sky is this beautiful shade of pink to purple to violet. You have these very industrial ideas. It pans down, and we pick up the Tony Montana's Cadillac. Panning down, panning down. There's even a great sign that says end there. I don't know if production design put that in, but we pan down following the car and we reveal the house. So it feels like we're just keeping the car in frame as we reveal the house. And then we come to rest here, but we don't cut away. We actually stay and push across now to where the fence is. We see Tony, when his suit, get out of his car. Then we push in to get close to him. Then as he walks down, we're now turning, following him, revealing everything, and then up onto the house. We even see him knock on the door. And then when the door opens, we cut. So this is a beautiful, very artful way to link where the house is, what type of day it is, who is there, Tony Montana, what car he's driving, where he's going, and what the disconnect is, right? You have this beautiful little pink house, but it's obviously in a really bad neighborhood where it's dusk. Tony Montana's showing up in his new suit, in his Cadillac, to his mother's house for the first time to see his sister for the first time in 10 years. And the way that it links these elements, this could be, drone shots don't have to be, these epic 50-mile-an-hour zooming past, panning down, spinning around, going through a hole. It can be these more subtle things of linking where the character is, who the character is, what the character is doing, where they're going, how they're going there. And for that example, I think it's really great. Here's another shot from, let me see, from Dark Knight. And we, what's this? We do the classic push in on the city, but with a twist, because Chris Nolan here is basically subverting the classic push in on the city, because rather than pushing on the whole city, we're pushing in on one particular building. We're getting closer and closer and closer. And what are we doing? What's going on here? Why are we, what's important about this building? And then as we get right close to it, the window blows out and suddenly we're in the middle of the action. I always thought this was a drone shot, but if you look up here on the top left, you actually see the reflection of the helicopter. They did such a good job keeping it out with the IMAX camera. And then they picked the perfect angle of approach. And then they got it in just at the end. Still very, very artful. No one's going to notice that watching it. And with that great Hans Zimmer score, that really, I can figure it so carefully now. Here's a different variation from Michael Mann, who's a big inspiration of Christopher Nolan. We start on LA, and then we pan down to the outlying suburbs, the industrial suburbs, and then we pick up the subject, the car. So now we're tracking with the car. We've shown where the car is in relation to LA, what time of day it is, and what kind of neighborhood that he is. So now we're as an audience, we know exactly where we are. We're localized, we're contextualized, which is what drone shots do, or establishing shots do really, really well. And now we're going to follow this guy driving slow speed through the back alleyways of LA at night. If we had just started on this shot, if we'd cut from the LA skyline to this shot, we would know that it was where it was, but we wouldn't know more of the context. Incorporating those in one big, beautiful sweeping camera move is really artful filmmaking. So now we're getting into Lord of the Rings. I'm going to jump over to my other timeline and do Fury Road, I think, first. How are we doing on the Zoom? I don't see any more. I didn't see another Q&A. Tell me he didn't just say pan down. I did, because I'm talking camera movement, not necessarily drone movement. So definitely a Halloween helicopter shot. We're tracking with, we see three elements here. We see the people in the background. We see the army in the foreground. We see these guys are going to try and get to these guys. And then George Miller, masterful filmmaker that he is, now has the group of cars closest to us fire off these flares and have them explode where the camera is, and it's exploding around us. We thought that we were just in sort of a god's eye view of the world, and we were traveling from one element to another. We're going through, and now things are exploding around us. Oh, dismissed. Scenery is not much dialogue. All right. here's another couple of great examples of really fantastic shot making. We um, start on the object, and then we pull away as the object pulls away from us. So we're still moving forward. We're just not moving forward as fast as um, the object is moving away from us. And now that I look at it, this fire um, coming out of the exhaust here looks really fake, but who knows? Here is one of, I think, probably one of the best establishing. It's not really establishing because it's sort of they're going into this storm, and one of the best shots in the history of Hollywood. We dolly right over these, to show how big our army is, and then we cut to, so we're establishing, oh my God, there are 100 guys in cars. This is an armada, but in the background we sort of see the storm. Then we cut perpendicular, not parallel, but perpendicular, and then we're essentially zooming or pulling back to show the scope of the storm. So we've established how big the armada is, and then we're in the next shot we're actually showing how small they are compared to what they're about to drive through. And it's this, another scene here where we actually go underneath the truck as it's coming towards us, which I'm not quite sure how they did that. Maybe dug a hole and had the crane go down into it and had all these trucks drive at very, very low speed, sped it up like 4 times, and then had the camera go back down underneath. Or maybe the cars were driving slow enough that they could just stop. Here's another beautiful example where we're going with the subject into the sun, and we're going just faster than it, so that as we track right, we reveal the sun through the gaps in the cars. I mean, it's all of these small little elements that can add so much to a shot. And there are 2 ways of doing this. One is pre-visualizing these shots in a computer, your VFX package of choice, whether it's SketchUp or Maya or 3D Max, and playing around with these and using time to do this again and again and again. Or when you're actually on location flying the drone, you do your camera move that you want to establish, and then you think to yourself, okay, I've got something that's good. What is working in this shot, and how can I make it better? How can I, the first version of the shot, and of course I don't know, I'm just guessing, the first version of the shot might have been an hour earlier when the sun was, halfway up the frame up here. And the camera operator, because this doesn't look like drone, this looks like from car to car, picture car. The picture car guy might have said, you know what? Just at sunset, as the sun is peaking over the horizon, we could do this again in this slight direction, and we'll get the sun coming through the cloud, through the gaps in the truck. And so they waited, tried it a couple different times, maybe drove along, maybe turned it around, drove it backwards, maybe this was take 14 or something, I don't know, or maybe it was just very, very lucky. But you should always be looking, when you're doing this sort of setup, should always be looking to see what it is that is working in the shot, and how you can add another layer to that, how you can make what's working work even better, or take away something that's not working, or get what's working and then add another element. It might be like this shot here. We're pushing in, we're following this car, we're going to this car, and then we add this extra element of the flares coming up and exploding, as the camera goes through. It might be that we could have started on the cars themselves and tilted up as we saw the camera in the distance. Whatever it is, we're always looking for ways to. Oh, here's another great example of that. Is we've got a locked off shot. We've got the 2 things coming together, so the audience thinks, oh, this shot is about telling how these are going to intersect, and then we don't expect out of, camera right, a whole bunch another cars to join us and go either side of the camera. And then we're going to pan up and move away. Here's another element, right? Shooting into the heat haze of the desert. So you're just, Hollywood has got very good at stacking these elements, adding more and more and more to your shots, to the point where they just look really, really artful. Here's another one where we start on, and that you'd have to use a reasonably wide lens, a reasonably tight lens for this, like the 7x or the 14x, well, because that allows you to not show everything at once, to start small on something. So they start on just the war truck, then we pull back as they go forward, revealing more, and then we keep doing that till we reveal the whole army. Again, we start in this one, we start on our subject, Cameron Charlize Theron, what's her name in this? Furiosa, driving the car, the wives around her. We pull back as they're driving forward and then reveal all the elements around her. So in this one 3-second shot, we've got the people, the context, the characters, the surroundings, the speed they're going, and then all of these crazy guys on their pogo sticks. I'm just going to play this because it's one of the best shots in cinema history. Tom Hardy bounces across on the other side as this huge explosion happens. And I mean, I honestly think there's enough going on in this shot with the context, the explosion, Tom Hardy turning his head back to look at it, that if this was also an orbit, if this also had movement in the camera, it might be too much. It might detract from what it is we're trying to show the audience. And to the end here. Here's another great way of a reveal. Start on the sun, empty space. We're not really pulling back. We're just being overtaken by the subject as it introduces itself, and then we crane up and around and then over the top again to show the entire context of what we've got. So we don't, it's slow enough. It's like 10 seconds almost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of introducing this vehicle, not from just showing it and then spinning around it or orbiting around it or craning up over it. We're revealing the information of what this thing is, from its bumper to its front wheel to its back wheel. Then we're showing how big it is. Then we're craning up to show the top of it, how it's armed, the flags. Yeah, George Miller is really up there with, and Mad Max Fury Road is up there with some of the the greatest shot making of all time. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Are there any questions about this so far? We've covered a lot, and we've kind of like jumped in very, very quickly. I wanted to know if there's anything I can do to sort of elucidate and talk a little bit more about what I'm, if people have questions before we move on to the second half of this. No questions so far. Love it. Okay, let me look at my notes. So establishing shots aren't just for the first frame of the film. Every time you move to a new location, sometimes a new scene, you're going to need to establish that for the audience. Like, think of the difference between showing two men talking in a tent. They're debating, who should surrender, who shouldn't, how many people, like days or, whatever it is. They're maybe discussing how far to water. Think of the dramatic impact of that in the mind of the audience. And then think of if we had established it first that there are two huge armies camped opposite one another and that this tent is assembled between the two armies, sort of in the no man's land between them. So now that we know who these people are. Obviously, they're the negotiators or the commanders of the respective armies. We know who has the advantage. One army is bigger than the other, perhaps. We know where we are. We've also established what time it is, given the cues that we can reveal on, how the people are armed, what weapons they're fighting in. Is it sunset or sunrise? Is it midday? Is it summer or winter or spring? Are there trees? Are there flowers? If show a giant storm approaching the two armies, as you show, the men encamped, it's kind of getting my example's taking on a Game of Thrones vibe here. But now suddenly the two people in the tent and their discussion, there's so much more at stake. There's so much, we know what exactly it is they're talking about. And we don't need that epic establishing shot every single time we open a scene. But it's important to know that if we don't do that, we don't establish it visually, we're going to have the actors establish it in the dialogue. So they're going to have to say, I've got 2,000 men more than you, or half of my men are dying of thirst, or, and it's always better in a film, in a story, to show, not tell, because if you're going to tell, just write a book. If you want to show, that is, television is a visual medium, and if we can show, we should show. And it doesn't need to be two huge armies. Obviously, we're running up the budget here. Not many people are working with that much visual effects, but it can be great to know where we are, what time of day it is, what we're surrounded by, what resources they have, meaning, are they near a road, or are they totally isolated? All of these things are elements that you can show in a great establishing shot, drone or otherwise, that then adds so much more context to what we're doing. Great establishing shots show the relationship between the subject, the object, and the location. But as we saw in some of the examples I just showed, just cutting to a wide of a city, of a forest, of a campground, of whatever, of a house, isn't, it's giving either the audience too much or not at all. It's not giving them enough, because it's not calling out any of the elements of your scene. You're not, starting on a river and following a river up and then establishing the castle. You're just saying, here it all is. Make up your own mind. Whereas a great establishing shot, like that one from Scarface, where we establish where the location is. We're in a bad part of town. It's sunset. We pull down. We see a nice car approach a well-maintained but modest house, and we see a man in a white suit get out, check his hair, check his appearance, and then knock on the door. In 20 seconds, we've done way more than we could have if we'd had a narrator, if we'd had someone say, "Hey, Tony, you're going back to your mother's house for the first time in 10 years. Are you nervous?" Like that is so on the nose, whereas showing it is so much more artful. So we'll jump into my second group of examples, which are mainly from Lord of the Rings, because share my screen here. Oh, Timothy Lott wanted to know restrictions on various airspaces. I believe there is an app for that, and I believe your drone will also tell you. Mine, I live not that far from an airport, and if I try and take off or try and go above a certain limit, my drone will say, no, restricted airspace. You're stuck to 100 meters or whatever it is. Middle Earth has no restrictions on airspace apart from the Nazgul and the Eagles, as far as I know. Share screen. We'll try this again. Screen share is loading. You're sharing your screen. Okay, so from the bad streets of LA to a couple of these really wonderful Lord of the Rings shots. Here we see a tree, a hedge, and some feathers, some flags, and then we crane up and pan and tilt down to show people getting ready. This is actually this is obviously done on a dolly, not on a drone, but what they do here, and I'm sure that this little this little tree in the foreground was added for effect by the props department once they'd done a couple of takes, and or maybe the director said, "Can we get some foreground? Give us some greenery in here." And you see how how much depth it gives. So we have foreground, subject, background. So we've got those three elements working together, and we also start behind Frodo. We show that he's reading a book, and then as we move around, we then reveal him as he looks up. So this is what great shot making is all about. It's everything working in concert, not just the camera, but the actors and the subject too. Another perfect example, we start on a dirt road. We're going to have a uh, we're going to have a wagon roll into frame, and then we're going to follow the wagon up as it establishes more of the location. This means that the camera move, the drone move, is motivated. It's not someone flying around like crazy. It's slowly pushing up and revealing all of this as it happens. Again, same thing, little girl running. We're going to pan with her, then up and over the hill to reveal the wagon coming in. Why not just cut to this scene? Because it's so much information. It's not linking all the different things together. Whereas following the little girl, we know, she's running barefoot. She's a hobbit. We come up over this tree. We establish the Shire. Here's another one. Start on the water. Start on the reflection, which is another great device filmmakers use, and then pan up to reveal what's been reflected. Pan up again to reveal the wagon. Then again, wagon tire, following it in across the bridge, frame left, revealing the people waiting for him. Around the corner he comes. We're going to actually pan left, then pan right. And then this is probably my favorite one, these beautiful leading lines down as we pull up, and as we exit, he reveals the whole Shire and the hobbit holes and all the beautiful little things. Here's one that I thought was really interesting, where we actually pan down. So the camera's not moving at all, but we establish the scale and scope of the trees. Look, these trees go up forever. They're gigantic, old, ancient trees. And then we find these tiny little hobbits sleeping in the roots of them. So, they just put this camera either on a cliff or on a really high ladder, and they're just pushing down. And it gives all these clues. And there's sort of almost a surprise at the end, where you think that the hobbits are going to be 5 or 6 times bigger than they are, but you get these tiny little people, and it shows how inconsequential they are compared to the forest that they're in. Here's a lovely idea of the silhouette against the sky, panning with them. And here's another one that's a very slow tilt down. They wanted to add movement as the Gandalf and the Hobbit start camera right, or start screen right, and then slowly center themselves and come into the space. These are very clearly children pretending to be hobbits. Oh, then this may be one of the best shots ever. We pick up Gandalf riding Shadowfax, is it? Then we bang straight into this tree. Gandalf disappears behind the tree as we come up and over, and then we're revealing the tower where his destination is. This shot would be so much less effective if we just saw the tower right here. Maybe this is a CGI tree. I mean, if it is, it's beautifully placed. But what this does is build suspense in the mind of the audience. We want to know, where is he going? And rather than reveal it straight away, the filmmakers, Peter Jackson, decided to say, "Oh, we're going to just hold you a couple of seconds, and then when you see it in all its majesty, it's going to be even more impressive." What else we got? Oh, the thought was cool. So we have we're with this one, we're establishing, we're in a valley, it's full moon, we're at nighttime. Is this Riverdale? Riverdale? We're panning across, we're revealing the size and the scope of the place, and then we're pushing in on the small little place where people are. Just really nice shot making, really nice work. I've got one more camera here. How much does the actor's attitude play into how the scene evolves? Um, I would say that since you're trying to reveal the actor in context of what they're doing, really great scenes have multiple axes of movement. So if you're familiar with the drone controller, right, each one of these guys, if you push them left or right, up or down, make the drone go up, the drone go down, they go to the left, or right. That's all a single axis. The drone is either going forward or back, or up or down, or left or right. If you're using these either diagonally or using them both at the same time, let me see if I can do that. Now you're doing a multi-axis move where the drone is going up and then coming to the side, going to the side. You're mixing it up. So you're moving around the subject and making the background move in the opposite way. You can do, most great shots have multi-axis involvement. You can also move the gimbal itself with the roll here. So you maybe, combine all of those things, make the drone go up while the camera goes down, while the drone goes sideways. Now you've got something else. But if you're just doing this on a still object, all you're doing is revealing different aspects of the still object. But what you can do is, if the object is moving, you're now multiple axis of movement and revealing the camera. So the classic one is the flyover. The car is going this direction, the drone is going this direction, and as it goes over, you pivot and look back at it. But you saw all these examples that we had where, yes, you're really just tracking with the person as they move, and as they move past the drone, if you're either going slower than them or going the opposite direction than them, it then is able to reveal where they're going, other elements in the scene. I think Renee asked about specific emotional context to revealing shots. I think it's less emotional. I think your emotion is going to come from the music, be it fast or slow or cinematic, the tone, the key, whether it's a minor key or a major key, whether how that is going to have the biggest emotional impact. If you then make the drone music, the drone movement set to the music, same sort of speed, same sort of context, then you're going to be able to control the audience's emotions that much more. See my notes now. So a couple of kind of beginner tips for drone operation. You want to, if you're shooting like some of the shots that we just tried, cinematic mode is your best friend. Hold on. What that will do is basically take out all the big movements on the stick, and like the glitches and the pushes. Another thing that's really helpful is easy on, easy off. So it's not a game controller. Like pushing it around like this is going to get very crazy footage. You want to slowly accelerate into your move, and then don't just drop it, slowly accelerate in and slowly pull out of the move as well, so that you're coming on and coming off in ways that don't seem unnatural to the human eye, because what can be crazy, what can be really disconcerting is anything kind of breakneck speeds or anything artificial. Like, we're used to inhabiting our own body and our own eyes, and we tend to turn slowly or move our eyes from one place to another. We're not used to like whipping our head around in the middle of a movement, or doing this and then doing this. Think about and in that scene from Alexander, the reason I think that they used the eagle was to sort of show, oh, this is an eagle's eye view. That's what they're seeing. And so they're going to use, it's an eagle's POV. They're going to look as an eagle looks. One of the biggest things you can do to get this sort of leading perspective in your drone shots is to shoot tighter rather than wider. So use the zoom either in your drone itself, like the Mavic 3 has this second camera that you can go to in the controller and push in. That allows you to start tighter and then choose what to reveal when. If that can be hard for newer drone operators. So one thing I definitely think is worth trying is shooting on the regular camera and then shooting the maximum resolution, which is 5K, and then cropping in on that 5K in post and moving around within the frame or slowly zooming out through the drone movement to reveal more and more as you go. And as you get more comfortable and as you get a little bit more aware of both your operation and your shot making, you'll probably get better and better at actually doing that in camera rather than doing it in post, and which gives you much more control. A couple of final little notes on lighting your drone shots. Obviously, if you're not some huge cinematographer, you're not bringing out multiple trucks and generators and lighting your area, but we're using the sun. You'll always get a better image backlighting, meaning having the sun coming from in front of you than you will the sun from behind you. When the sun comes from behind your shot, it tends to flatten everything. And what we're going for with a lot of these shots is separation. So if the sun is in front of your camera, like you're looking into the sun, it's going to backlight, rim light, separate out what it is that you're shooting and give you generally better light. The challenge then becomes, how can you keep the sun out of your shot? Because there's no matte box on a drone to drop the eyebrow, the French flags, and keep the shot out. So what you have to do is get intelligent with how you hide the sun. Is the sun behind a cloud? Is it behind a group of trees? If you're low, is it behind a mountain? Then you're getting problems with the sun is being blocked totally. So what a lot of people do is use your upper horizon, use the upper frame of your upper image of your frame to hide the sun above, and then shoot down into your subject. It's going to be beautifully backlit. Then you can sort of orbit around within that and get a nicer shot. But again, you got to experiment. The orbit is a great way to do this. You find your subject. I fly over Lake Champlain a ton. There's a nice little island there called Goat Island. I'll fly out and I'll orbit around it. And it is typically much prettier when the sun is in front of my camera than when the sun is behind the drone. But yeah, experiment and find. None of these things are automatic. You have to practice them and apply them and slowly add layers and more perspectives. The shots that I showed here from Fury Road, Lord of the Rings, almost certainly they were a combination of previs, meaning someone decided everything that was going to go into them in a computer, and then when the operators and the filmmakers got there, they shot the shot as it was previs and then looked for improvements they could make and did dozens of takes, with this kind of budgets. But when we're just drone operators working alone, there's nothing to stop us doing 50 takes. There's just fly back, change batteries, fly back out and try again as the sun gets better and better. Did I have any funny stories about a drone shot that didn't go as planned? Asks Christina. Did I recover the shot? I definitely crashed a couple of drones when I started. And what I actually really like to do now is what's called a K-check. It's short for kinesthetic check. I'll get ready to fly and I'll boot up my drone, connect everything, check all the batteries, do my pre-flight check. And then I'll just close my eyes and take a breath and think to myself, does this feel right? And it's amazing how usually if everything's gone right, you'll be like, yeah, I feel right. I want to fly. Let's go. And I take off. Sometimes I'll get this feeling like something's wrong. and then I'll redo my check and go through my checklist again and sort of check my surroundings and sometimes I've found, oh yeah, haven't turned this on, or this is at 1 power, or it basically just works as a way to slow down your thinking before you jump in and do something and crash your $2,000 drone. So hopefully that helped. K-check, it's from I think the US military invented that, but interesting practice to get into. It is 1:58. I'm gonna wrap it up in a minute now. We'll answer some final questions if anyone has them. But thank you very much for bearing with me, guys. The first little technical problems of the stream not sharing. I'm glad we got that recovered. Thank you to B&H and the Great Event Space guys for hosting us. Thank you to DJI for sponsoring this and supporting drone learning everywhere. Hopefully we come back and do another one of these. But yeah, good luck with your drone cinematography. It's one of the few things that you can get spectacular footage with a sole operator and just the time to experiment and work on yourself.